I've lived away from home a couple of times. I lived in Missouri for about 10 years, and now I've lived in Cambridge almost 4. And when I live away from family, there's always this sense that I have to go back for the holidays, that I have to go spend some time with them during my breaks from school, from work. Sometimes I just want to stay in Cambridge and enjoy the snow and the holidays, and I don't really want to travel to Costa Rica. But there's always this guilt or this sense of duty that I have to do it because they're my family. Our conversation today with Meghan is exactly about this kind of question. How much do we travel to see family? How much do we owe family in this world that we live in, where everybody lives far away and where we are connected through the internet and through Zoom and through Facebook or Instagram? How often are we supposed to travel? How much is too little or too much? So I'm excited to have this conversation and see where it takes us. I'm Mauricio Bruce, and this is The Real Question. Hi, Meghan. How are you doing?
Hi, Mauricio.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having my question.
I'm very excited to talk to you about your question. Before we do that, though, I don't know if you've been listening, but I've been starting all my episodes with a question, which is, if you could tell me anything about yourself, what would you tell me?
I have thought about that question because I have heard the pattern. So I guess it's that electronic music, techno music, was kind of my gateway into another way of seeing the world, kind of expanding my worldview, I would say.
So when you say that it was a gateway to another way to see the world, can you expand on that? I'm really curious. Like, how did that work? How did you get introduced to that world, and what did it do for you?
Yeah, so I actually went to the Fashion Institute of New York thinking I was going to do something in fashion. And I had a friend named David in my class, and about 2 weeks before I graduated with my bachelor's degree, he took me to the first underground party and said, "You're going to hate the music, but you're going to love the people." And he wasn't right about hating the music. I absolutely love the music. I stepped into that first room and I said, "This is what I've been looking for," and I didn't even know it. And it was a combination of different cultures from everywhere, all over the world. And the music was everything for me. So that really changed the trajectory of my entire life.
It connected you to the world in a way that you didn't feel connected before.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's fascinating. But I'm also curious about the question you're bringing to us today. And so I'm going to ask you, what is your question?
Yeah, so my question, if I frame it in one sentence, is I say we in this context because it's a family kind of choice, should we continue to travel to see family at the frequency that we've been doing it? We live in Costa Rica.
Okay.
And the families are more or less, the trips have been to Spain and to Buffalo. And we keep going back and forth since my daughter's been born 2.5 years ago.
And so how often are you traveling?
So we are traveling around 2 months of the year. It's usually a couple trips to Buffalo, a couple trips to Spain. Last year, we tried to do a month in Spain and keep it to one trip of the year. And then it felt short and my daughter felt kind of separated from the family, like almost like she didn't know them. And that was a little bit heartbreaking, I think, for all of us. And so then we just went in February, which is why this question came up. And that was 2 weeks, and that felt a bit better. But, she's gotten sick on both of those trips. Like after coming back, the last one in August, she was sick for almost a month on and off. And so that just adds a whole other level when you're out of home, trying to manage different things, being in a new place. So yeah, that's kind of the frequency. And then when we go to Buffalo, it's usually around 2 weeks at a time.
So you're 2 weeks over there, and then you'll come back for a couple of months, go away for another 2 weeks, come back for a couple of months, away for 2 weeks. But these 2 weeks seem to be more than just 2 weeks because of what you're talking. There's sick time, and there's sort of coming back and integration time. Mm-hmm. So tell me why you're even questioning this. What are the benefits for you of traveling, right? Like, why not just say, it's too much, we're going to just stop traveling? What is it that you get from these trips that you go on?
There's beautiful benefits, right? Like seeing her build relationship with the family, of course, us as well. But when you have a child, it's pretty obvious that they're more excited to see the little one, which is fine. So there's a beautiful benefit like this last trip, watching her connect with her aunt, do their own thing, her go off this time with them right from the beginning. And then in Buffalo, there's a whole tribe of cousins, and they really, that kind of unconditional love and acceptance, you can kind of feel it. It's like this automatic opening of arms. And I find that to be really beautiful, and to make those memories and have those experiences, and for her to see different ways, than just what she's experiencing here, which to some degree can be isolating at times, right? We don't have family here. And so wanting her to have that experience as we're still kind of building that for ourselves here. So
you talked about building relationships. You said a word that I think is important, which is sort of about a tribe of cousins, and this sort of tribal feeling that you get when you go to one of these countries, and the family sort of greets you with open arms, greets her with open arms. Mm-hmm. So in a way, this question is shifting to be about your daughter. Am I correct?
Yes, but there's a PS on that, which is I have a hard time. I have a hard time being in the new environment. I have a hard time with all the layers of stimulation. And so at times it's not that fun, right? I feel like it's 3 times more work for me. And so it's just felt like a lot, at least for me. And I think also for my partner, but I'm not going to speak for him. But for me, it has felt like a lot the last 3 years, knowing we're pregnant, and then going through all of that preparation. And, I had a really challenging postpartum on top of it. And so it's like, I don't know if I can handle more stress.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this sense, as I hear you talk, that you're exhausted, and that these trips are just more work and more exhaustion.
Yeah.
You can see the benefits. You can see the way they help your daughter build relationships and be a part of the tribe and feel so loved and so accepted. Mm-hmm. But then you also put yourself first, and you say, how much more of this can I do? Mm-hmm. How much longer can I go? Mm-hmm. It's getting too much for me. And when do I put myself first?
And that pressure keeps coming up, right? Like my mom, I just talked to her, and she's like, when are you guys coming? It's the first question, because you just went to Spain. So now I want you here. Mm-hmm. And, they alleviated some pressure, the financial of like, okay, we'll buy your tickets. I was like, okay, great. That sounds great. That part's okay. But there's still there's an excitement there within me. And there's also of like, oh my God, again, kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm. A dread.
Let
me ask you this. When your mom calls, you've just come back from Spain, you're still recovering from the jet lag, from the cold, from the exhaustion of a trip with a 2.5-year-old. Mom calls and says, hey, when are you coming? We're waiting for you. You already saw the in-laws. Now it's time for me. You want to say, Mom, I need a couple of months here. I need to rest. I won't be there for another, 3-4 months. What do you feel when you say that? Is there any guilt that comes up?
Oh, yeah. There's definitely guilt. And she's really good at planting those seeds far in advance.
What are the seeds?
The seeds is like, since the moment she found out we were going to Spain in February, any opportunity she got to remind us that we are going to Spain, even though she was just here in December,
Hmm.
is been taken, and I'm aware of it, right?
But how does that feel for you? Like when you hear her say, "Oh, you're going to Spain. Hey, Spain is coming." What are you feeling through that?
Kind of annoyance, to be
Yeah.
honest. We decided to do that trip also because my husband had work there. And there's factors. His parents are in their late 80s. His dad's not been in good health for a long time. And
Mm.
so there's a desire there, for them to see her
And for her to know them.
and for her to know them. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got the benefits, but we also have the guilt and the exhaustion and the need that I'm hearing in you to just sort of rest and settle for a little bit rather than just keep going, the next thing, the next trip, the next trip, the next family reunion.
Yeah. It just feels like we get back and then we need to be thinking about going to see the next tribe.
Yeah. So if you'll let me just sort of explore that guilt and open it up, because I heard a couple of different guilts there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's the guilt that you feel toward your daughter, right? What am I keeping her from? Or what are we keeping her from? What are we giving her? What are we not giving her?
Mm-hmm.
There's the guilt toward your parents and your partner's parents,
Mm-hmm.
living far away from them. How much do we owe them? How much are we supposed to go over and see the tribe and be connected to them when we are creating our life and our tribe here in Costa Rica?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a guilt toward yourself. How much do I owe myself? How much do I rest? How much do I keep going? And what is the balance that I have to strike within me? Does that make sense?
Yeah, as you were sharing about the guilt, something came up for me that I feel like is maybe at the center of all of this as well.
Yeah. Tell me.
I shared in the beginning the challenge in the postpartum. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was a good year that was really, really hard. And this past trip, I was getting really overwhelmed. And so it brings up this deeper question for me of like, I don't want to repeat that again. And I know it's an opportunity to work on it, but at the same time, I'm like, it's just been so much the last 2.5 years for her and I, and of course also my husband, but especially her and I. And
Yeah.
I feel like we've only started to get out of that 6 months ago. And then the other thing that came up as you shared that is like the guilt of like, why can't I handle it?
Yeah.
Like everybody else can do it. Who's everybody else? I don't know. But, like that's the thought that comes.
Yeah.
But why can't I?
Why am I different?
Why am I different? Why do I get so overwhelmed? Why do I get so overstimulated? I should be able to handle this, right?
Yeah.
So that's what comes when you share that.
So if we start just by thinking about Meghan, not about your daughter, not about your parents, not about your in-laws.
Mm-hmm.
If we just think about Meghan and sort of what Meghan needs and wants and owes herself, and I ask you, Meghan, you are creating this life. What do you want to create for yourself?
Right now in this moment, it's a slower pace of life, a freedom of time and resources, community around. It's a slow build here, I feel like. And so community has really been at the forefront right now for me of like, what does it look like? What does it feel like? That type of deeper connection versus just like, hi, how are you? How's the weather? Great. Okay. I guess sometimes I don't always feel here the sense of belonging.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Meghan wants connection and Meghan wants belonging.
Mm-hmm.
When you were talking about how you feel selfish because the last 2 years have been mostly about you and about your needs and about your health.
Mm-hmm.
And so you feel a little bit selfish putting yourself first. It just makes me feel that because Meghan is guilty about connecting to herself, she's putting everyone else first. And so Meghan hasn't finished connecting to herself. And so these trips have become just exhausting things that you have to do rather than things that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So if we feed Meghan first and we say, Meghan can't really take care of her daughter and really can't satisfy the in-laws or the parents' needs if she's not satisfying her own, what would it take for Meghan to start building some community around her, some community in Costa Rica, so that Meghan could feel, oh, I'm connected, I belong here, and I can nurture myself here, and then I can draw from that to nurture my daughter, to nurture my in-laws, to nurture my parents?
Yeah, I don't know if I know how to answer that yet. There's a lot of pressure on myself to show up for Lucia in ways I couldn't before. I don't want to say make up for, but to some degree, that's what it is. Like, she's at the forefront right now, and I find it hard to prioritize just downtime for myself. My whole day essentially, or days, revolve around when I'm with her and working to be present and connected and available, and then work time.
And where's Meghan time?
That's what I'm struggling to find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where we sort of have this feeling that you keep depleting and you keep depleting and you keep depleting. And here comes a new trip and you're like, ugh,
Yeah.
I'm exhausted, and it's just going to be more exhausting.
Yeah.
So I go back to belonging and community. Where are the places where Meghan is filling up her tank?
I don't really have it.
Yep. And so the question comes, how can we create those spaces for Meghan? A place where, it doesn't have to be every day, but you could find a place where you can go once a week to just be with you and it can be with other people, but to just feel that connection that, again, was so important to you when you discovered techno music.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to land there, but yeah, I think this has been a huge piece missing for me for a long time. It's not a new thing. And I've tried here, I've tried in different places, but I haven't quite found it.
Yeah.
Like, sleep is me time right now. Like, sleep, I'm in bed by 8:30 and I'm pretty strict with it. And, waking up at a time that feels like I can have a little pocket of me time, which is like an hour, that I'll allow myself, I should also say, to have.
That I'll allow myself.
Yeah.
Because there's this sense that you owe so much to your daughter.
Yeah.
You owe so much of yourself to your daughter.
Yeah.
That I'll allow 1 hour of time for myself. So I want to ask you, what would be an activity that you could go out into the world to do that is just enjoyable to you? Like, do you like hiking? Do you like reading? Do you like playing an instrument? What is something that Meghan enjoyed before becoming a mother and that Meghan could still enjoy?
Yeah, what comes to me is the things I used to kind of connect with, which is live music in different forms. I like live music. Yeah, I used to love to go to sound baths. That was a big part of what I used to do in LA. Mm-hmm.
So I'm hearing that sound and music are important to you.
Yeah, they're very important to me. Mm-hmm.
And like that there could be a space, and you don't have to go out. I mean, you could. I would love for you to find a music venue that you could go to, even if it's just once a month, to listen to some music. But you could create musical spaces for yourself at home where you just sit with the music and you know that this is just for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for your partner. It's not for your daughter. It's not for anybody else. It's just for you to recharge your batteries or fill your tank.
Yeah, I used to do that a lot, actually. And I kind of stopped. And this week, it's funny you say it because I was having the feeling that I need to open up and dance again, and techno, bringing it back to what I shared in the beginning. It always gets me excited. I have immediate, like my whole body comes alive. It's just it's a music for me that has been part of my journey for now almost 2 decades. Yeah.
So would you be willing to explore some of these spaces for yourself?
Yeah, I feel like I need to give myself more permission to do these things. Yep. And
because my caveat was going to be, you need to explore them, and you can't be thinking in the back of your head, oh, I need to get through this quickly because I need to go be with my daughter, or I need to do, I only have 10 minutes, because it's a space that you would have to give to yourself fully.
Yeah. And that will take work, I think, but I think I can do it.
I think you would quickly start to see some of the benefits and want to keep going. And your daughter would see the benefits, and your partner would see the benefits, and your in-laws and your parents would see the benefits of you charging your own batteries, not just charging all of theirs.
Yeah. It's so interesting that I didn't realize that I was feeling so depleted. I don't think I really connected that because, I have my practices, I do my workouts, like these kind of things. And, I think my spirit is asking me for some other things right now.
I think so too. And so I'm just going to take it back to the question that we spoke at the beginning of the show to sort of land on. But if we think about this question about traveling that you asked, should I continue to travel? Should we continue to travel as often as we are? Having found what we found, having discussed what we've discussed, what are you feeling about that question?
Yeah, that it's kind of irrelevant to some degree.
What do you mean?
Because as I imagine myself kind of filling up my cup and nourishing myself and glowing, it feels like it will come naturally and feel more exciting, because as I'm filling myself up, things naturally will spread. And I know that into my environment, into the work we're doing, into the relationships we're building. And so then it feels like it's an opportunity for memory versus like duty.
Thank you so much, Meghan. Thank you for this conversation.
Yeah. Thanks for showing me what was underneath. Guiding me to it.
And I think in the world we live in, where there are so many opportunities to disconnect from ourselves, this is a great reminder to come back and look inside and see, how am I charging my batteries? How am I taking care of myself so that I can be there for others and I can continue to show up in the world the way I want to show up? This has been The Real Question. Our show is funded through our Patreon at patreon.com/realquestionpod. If you're a regular listener, we would love your support. I also want to tell you that if you go to Patreon right now, you can hear a conversation between Vanessa and myself that is usually available only to patrons, but is unlocked and free to everyone right now. You can listen to us ask questions about ourselves and about our own lives and see the kind of perks that we offer those people who join us at Patreon. It's a really fun conversation, and I think you'll enjoy it. That conversation is called Real Talk, and the topic is anger. And again, you can find it at patreon.com/realquestionpod. Another way you can support this show is by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. I've been trying to stay on top of those reviews and read them all. So please leave your review. Tell me how I'm doing. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Real Question Pod. We are always looking for more guests, so please go to our website, realquestionpod.com, and submit your question. I'd love to have a conversation with you right here on the air, right here on the show, and see what we discover. We love to shout out our BFF tier patrons, Renee Underhill, Becky Boo, Jenny Cruz, and Amanda Schramm. Thank you so much for your support. We are a Not Sorry production. Our executive producer is Vanessa Zoltan. We are edited and produced by Ariana Nettleman. Music is by Nick Bowl, and we are distributed by Acast. Support for this show comes from the Fetzer Institute. Thank you, Meghan, for joining us today. Thank you for bringing your really important question and letting us dig under it and find all those things that we discovered, those ways that we need to remember to take care of ourselves so that we can be there for others and take care of others as well. And thanks as always to our wonderful team, Julia Argy, Nikki Zoltan, AJ Yaramas, Anissa Ahmed, Danny Langley, Courtney Brown, Casper Turkile, and Stephanie Paulsell. This has been The Real Question. Join us again next week for another question, another guest, and another exciting conversation. See you then.